Well, Happy New Year to Nicholas Gibbs and another Happy New Year's to everybody out there. Tesla finished down a tiny little bit today, I think 6 cents. And even as they killed it on the quarter four numbers, while in the meantime, the NASDAQ and the Mag 7 got absolutely crushed. Apple led the way and profit taking finished the job. Profit taking on the 10-year bonds might have also had a part in that rather unusual result today. So we'll talk about some of the overall economic issues later in this episode, but I really want to know what Good News Tuesday night co-host Nicholas Gibbs thought about the big beat on the numbers. What did you think, Nick?
Yeah, it was great, man. It was great to see that they were able to hit their number, 1.8 million, as expected. They said they would do it. They did it. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much to it. I mean, the biggest shock to me was the reporting of it was a little odd today, but other than that, no, I think it's great. It's impressive that despite all the turmoil over the last 2 3 years, that they just continue at this clip. I mean, essentially call it 500,000 vehicles in the quarter. And what was it, 2020? We did 500,000 in a year.
Yeah.
So in a matter of 3 years, they were able to do this. It's wild. It's pretty wild.
Continuing to hit their 50% per year number, actually beating it by quite a lot this year.
Yeah,
But
ahead
it's
of
gonna,
it.
but it's going to take quite a lot to do that again next year. The number would have to be, I believe it's 2.53. And the highest number I've seen yet is what Larry Goldberg has been talking about at 2.4. I'm at 2.35. Can we keep up can we get to 2.53 this year?
I mean, who knows? You never know. You never know what might happen. I doubt it. It seems pretty aspirational, but at the same time, it's funny. A year ago, if somebody told us that there wouldn't be a big enough market for three and Ys as there are right now, we would tell other people, well, you just don't understand. It's different. And now here we are kind of limiting ourselves, thinking, well, they've saturated the market because it's not a matter of not having enough factory space. Berlin can ramp up, Austin can ramp up,
Right.
Shanghai can probably put out more, same with Fremont. So we could probably get to a production rate of 2.5 and build that. But are we just changing the way we think as a community that they can't do it? Like, are we the same people from last year that were saying that? Like, just being a little introspective, it's kind of an interesting, you know, dynamic that we've kind of flipped ourselves.
I think you're 100% right, which is why I put out that video yesterday about that we could actually do 3 million vehicles if we really put our mind to it. When I say we, that Elon and the gang, could produce 3 million vehicles according to the numbers that are available in the various factories. But somehow we as a community, you're right. It's a good point. It's like, oh no, they're not going to do that. I mean, but why I'm a little bit contrarian. I can't make up my mind. I want to hear a little more from Elon. Maybe I'll have to wait until the earnings report, but I was pretty impressed that he said, let's get going in using a little more colorful language.
Yeah, I mean, listen, just think about it. We did just call it, okay, 1.8 million, right?
Yep.
You're telling me that we can't drum up, like, we already think that we'll get to like 2 million, 2.1, right? You're telling me you can't drum up another maybe 300,000 vehicles just with interest rates coming down and the $7,500 credit at point of sale, the economy coming back, people are less worried about, going into recession. Like, I kind of feel like that alone could drive the demand for it. So I'm not sure if that would be a big issue, but I don't know. I'm just speculating. I don't actually think it's going to happen, but just play devil's advocate. We are, I don't know. I'm just seeing the other side about how we're perceiving it.
Well, and then Larry Goldberg pointed out to me, I think over 2 weeks ago, he said, look, we know that we have this 50% per year. This is not a Tesla number. This is a Tony Seaman number, Seaman
Mhm.
number, where you're expecting to have this S curve growth. Well, we've seen that S curve growth in the Netherlands. We've seen it in, Sweden. We've seen it in California. We've seen it in Florida. We're not
Yeah.
seeing it in Missouri, Idaho, Iowa, some of these different places around the country. If we get that kind of growth in those places this year, Tesla's the only one that could fill it.
That's a good point. Yeah, with GM and Ford, everybody, that's such a great point. Yeah, and it that is the truth, right? We are seeing like what do we think is going to happen? It's not the curve's not going to continue, right? So yeah, I mean, all right, maybe I am getting convinced on this on this talk already.
Okay. Well, okay, so we got the sales numbers out of the way. Everybody's attention now for the next 3 weeks. I mean, 3 weeks from tomorrow, we'll get the earnings call. Everybody's gonna nothing. There's nobody's gonna be talking anything except margins. Have you thought very much about where you think margins might end up?
Oh, yeah, I have. I think the whole Cybertruck SX thing kind of threw things off a little bit. Um, I think they'll probably just come in line. I don't think they'll deviate too much from last quarter. Um, I, maybe I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to speculate, especially with everything that they're doing right now, as far as ramping up Cybertruck and how that impacts
Right,
it.
right.
I'm not I'm not James Stevenson on the spreadsheet, so I'm not really sure how that would be accounted for. But I know it's a drag. But I think it'll be a nothing burger. I think we'll walk away from the call not high or low in the margins. If anything, high because we're like, oh, it wasn't bad, it wasn't terrible, or we've bottomed clearly because maybe it's a little higher than last quarter. So yeah, I think the margin. You're right. Going into it, it'll be all about the margins. Coming out, I think the margins will be a nothing burger.
So there's two things that I keep wondering. I keep predicting. I have this history of doing this. I predict things that happen 2 quarters later than I predict them. And so I started in the second quarter last year predicting this, and I keep thinking it's going to happen. But at some point, the commodities have to the lowered commodities have to flow through. The lowered price of lithium has to flow through. The lowered price of batteries has to flow through, and the money from the IRA for the U.S. built portion of the 4680s that are being built in Austin, even though it's not as many as we want, but there's a number of them. And we get 45 bucks a kilowatt hour for those things. At some point, I think that has to show up in the margins. And I'm wondering if finally it'll happen this quarter.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I I kind of think they have already, and it's just that we're not seeing it the way we thought we would.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but the same way when we saw lithium go through the roof, we didn't see that kind of directly impact the margins as much as we saw them just discounting the vehicles as being the impact. So I don't know. I'm not sure how meaningful it is, especially with the way they do contracts. Um, yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think that narrative might be a little overplayed.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. At some point, it's going to be big. When we're starting to do 100 gigawatts
The
of.
tax credit, yes.
Yes, that's gonna be massive. I mean, 3.5, 4.5 billion per year at 100, 4.5 at 100 gigawatts. So again, I'm just gonna mention Larry Goldberg. He's particularly interested in energy and services and the impact those are gonna have on the numbers this time, whereas the street, of course, isn't paying any attention to that at all. Do you think we're gonna see some at least continuation of this
Yeah.
nice curve?
Yeah, I actually just did my 2024 predictions and 2023 review
Okay.
for the year, and yeah, that was one that I had for this past year was that we would really start to see the energy numbers come through, and we have. And next year, my prediction for 2024 was we're going to see that just accelerate. Yeah, I think without a doubt, in by the end of the year, Wall Street will be talking about energy.
All right, there you go. So I put out a lot of content over the weekend, a lot of commentary happening on that content about the Tesla Technological Convergence. Not sure if you saw any of those videos back and forth with Brian and Larry. We talked a lot about the convergence. And the idea is that we've got 5 different technologies that are going to be all coming together in a single year that are just mind-bogglingly going to change everything, whether that's 4680s or whether that's Dojo, whether that's the Optimus bots. I mean, it's just there's FSD. So we've got all those happening all in one year potentially. And that could be a crazy change to the narrative maybe even by the third quarter. Do you think?
It's funny you say that. I actually talked about something similar like that in my 2024 review prediction video.
Okay.
But if I'm hearing you right, I didn't get a chance to watch any of those videos. I was traveling back from Spain. But
Okay.
if I'm hearing you right, what I was saying was 4680. After we heard Drew talking about it, right? They're going to have the next generation, and they're adding these extra lines. That's going to be coming up in 2024. We already know the projection for all of the compute for their supercomputers and Dojo.
Right.
That's coming on. FSD 12 is coming out by the end of the year. Just think how much better it's going to be. Optimus, it seems like something's happening there. Like we're going to eventually have an AI day. Maybe something happens there. And then there's a good chance that we could see or learn more about the next gen car. And it seems like all that's happening right here. It's like everything's climaxing at the same moment. So it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Great minds thinking alike. Those are the five techs I was talking about. Of course, with the
Was that 5?
yeah, it was
Nice.
five. And with the Gen 3 car, what we're talking about is manufacturing capability that's never been seen before in terms of lowering costs, and also a car that's going to be probably as crazy, maybe even a crazier change than the Cybertruck was in terms of how it impacts the world in the future. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Same
Yeah.
ones.
I mean, to get a little hopium optimistic, whatever you want to call it, I I was thinking earlier today, how amazing would it be if the unveil of the next gen vehicle was them doing the unbox method, except it was Optimus doing it.
Right, right,
How
exactly.
like how amazing would that be for like an AI day or just the reveal of it? Like that's
Yeah, in fact, I kind of said the same thing. It's pretty, again, great minds thinking alike. I kind of said the same thing that maybe AI Day will be the convergence day.
mm,
Because all of those techs really kind of are artificial intelligence, based. One of the comments, one of the thoughts that I had, and I don't think originated, I think somebody else said it to me first, was that the dojo is going to have an impact on FSD. Yeah, who said that first? Was that Brian White? I can't remember. That with dojo accelerating, now all of a sudden you're going to accelerate the amount of compute you have for FSD, which makes that more likely to be happening in the next few months.
um I'm not sure I agree with that. What do you mean by Dojo will accelerate FSD? Just
Oh,
because they have more compute,
compute,
that
yeah,
they can train more?
yes, dramatically more
Okay.
compute, yeah.
Yeah. So Dojo is not actually being used for that right now. I know people keep confusing this. You have the NVIDIA clusters, that's not Dojo.
Right.
And then you have Dojo that they're working on. The NVIDIA clusters, what they're using to train FSD. They're not
Mhm.
actually using Dojo for it at all. So Dojo itself, I don't think would do anything for FSD yet until they actually cut over to use it because they keep adding. I mean, they're going to be purchasing more of these NVIDIA clusters this year, or yeah, during the rest of this year. And the whole point of that is for this FSD training. So, I mean, unless there is plan to cut over to Dojo or to somehow split up the workload or train different models and try to virtualize all that. I don't know. It doesn't exactly seem like that's what they're doing. I could be wrong, but there's something going on there. I'm not sure Dojo's ready yet for that.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, that'll be interesting. Maybe again, AI Day might be the answer to that. Maybe we'll find out more about that
yeah,
on
very
AI Day.
possibly.
All right.
Uh, pa-
So,
oh,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, part of me has started to think. I haven't said this actually on my channel at all, but what it kind of seems like is now that they're building out Dojo just to potential, and I could be wrong. This is speculation. To be the AWS Azure for neural net training, but they're using the NVIDIA clusters specifically for FSD. So they're kind of separating it. And I could see where they say, hey, we're using Dojo to train Optimus. We're using Dojo for XAI. You know, it's good for this
Uh-huh.
training. We're
Uh-huh.
just using these GPUs with NVIDIA for FSD because it's different.
Huh.
I could kind of see something like that, but that's just speculation.
All right. All right. Interesting. All right. So Sawyer Merritt says a little while ago, he reports basically on Canaccord Genuity putting out a new Tesla note this morning. They maintain their buy rating at 267. Wow. They said, we are quite bullish on Tesla's long-term growth prospects. We see vehicle autonomy as one of the highest value-creating technologies to be deployed ever. And Tesla, with its razor blade approach, is a leader in the real-world AI. We think Tesla is an Apple on steroids as it focuses on manufacturing and a higher level of vertical integration. Tesla is the sustainability behemoth. Is that how you pronounce behemoth? I'm not sure. In our opinion. Oh,
Behemoth?
yeah, I think you're right. I think it's behemoth. Yeah, thank you. Oh, and he says, and he loves the Cybertruck. So that sounds all very bullish, and yet he's at 267. It's like, what?
Well, where are you at for 2024?
700.
I like you, Randy. I hope you're right, Randy.
Well, okay, now look here. I've said this before. Maybe you've heard me say it. I'm not sure. We were at 410. We were at 410 when the company was half the size it is now, and way less than half of the size it will be by the end of this next year. I can't figure it out in my head as to exactly what the percentage bigger that we will be, but more than double the size, more than double the profits. We were at 410. We should be at 820 now. By the end of next year, we should probably be at 1,000 just based on that 410. So, and that's without any of the others, that's without energy. That's just cars. so, to be at 700 by the end of this year, that's without, if we have FSD or Optimus being rented out to somebody, then the numbers become much larger than 700. But that's where I am for next year based on just the normal PE that we should be able to get based on 2020 at the end of 2024, based on 2025 projections and a regular forward-looking PE. I think we could be at 700.
I'm rooting for you, man. I hope that's right. Yeah, I have my prediction is just that we reach all-time highs. So
Okay,
410,
410 by
415.
the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he goes on to say, however, the stock had a strong 2023 despite a significant reductions in earnings estimates. But everybody forgets to take into consideration that it had been at 410, it went to 100. So having a strong 2023 was really just having the difference, and it was kind of a nothing burger. It should have been higher than that, in my opinion. Anyway, now we stare at 2024. We wonder, are already lowered estimates for 2024 and 25 low enough? Are margins ready to bounce back in a big way? As we enter a growth pause, what will drive the stock for now? What can drive earnings upside or additional excitement about the upcoming growth slowdown? We await an interesting earnings call that should help us answer some of those questions. I agree with that. Stay tuned and mind the gap, he says. Well, so what do you think?
I mean, I think that's about as accurate as people predicting a recession in 2023, beginning of the year, saying that it was going to be such a horrible year. I mean, none of these people have turned out to be right. But I think 2024 it'll be a good year. I think Tom Lee, I think he's called it the best, saying that it's going to be a slow first half and it's a very strong back half. I think that's exactly what's going to happen, especially being an election year and everything. And again, if rates start coming down, the economy starts looking better, it looks like a soft landing, that 4 or 5 trillion sitting in money markets is going to come in eventually.
Sometime.
So,
yeah. Well, one of the things that's going to be strong, of course, is housing. I've been talking about that a lot on the show because it's 10% of the economy at least is just housing, mortgages, and the aftermarket for housing is at least 10% of the economy. And that's going to pick up like crazy as these interest rates come down. But the thing that's been a drag has been manufacturing, and manufacturing is still showing that it's still not picking up, but at some point, people are going to start buying that stuff that they haven't been buying, especially the durables. So S&P final U.S. manufacturing today on the PMI. Here was the report. The U.S. manufacturing slipped further into contraction during December, according to the latest data. S&P output returned to a decline. The downturn in new orders gathered pace. Lower total new sales reflected weakness in both domestic and external demand conditions, with firms adjusting down their input buying and hiring activity. So everybody's talked about this recession that has kind of gone through one sector and then another sector, and then it comes over here. And so housing, I don't see any way it doesn't. And in fact, the numbers are already showing that residential housing, in fact, I think I have a little report on that in a minute. Residential housing is already picking up, but this manufacturing sector has been down 19 months in a row. Do you see manufacturing popping anytime soon?
Yeah, so the manufacturing, this is an opinion. I think manufacturing follows a slowdown. It doesn't lead a slowdown. And so I think a slowdown results in manufacturing, where some people might say it's the other way around, that a slowdown manufacturing results in a slower economy. So I think we're just seeing the symptoms of it. Um, I think manufacturing will eventually bottom, but I think it's going to have to be led by rate cuts. So the Fed will have to do that. I mean, knock on wood, you never want to say anything's guaranteed, but man, it really looks like inflation is definitely dead. I think the Fed will, I don't think the Fed will need 12 months of data to be able to see that themselves. I think they'll use some, cognitive reasoning, which they didn't do beforehand, to see, hey, we're slowing down very aggressively. We're, about to pass the stop sign. We got to slow down. And I said to you last week, that's where I think they'll start doing more aggressive rate cuts rather
Uh-huh.
than the slow ones. And
Right.
I think it'll come. I don't think we'll wait for a meeting for it to happen. I think it'll come whenever they think they need it. So
Yeah, because
I do think things are turning around.
we do not have a February meeting. So there will be a long period between the January meeting and the March meeting. That might be a spot where they could come in between meetings. They did say in this same report, however, that among manufacturers, optimism picked up. So that would be along the lines of what you were just saying, that the manufacturers are looking ahead and saying, okay, we think this is, I mean, you can only wait so long for some stuff. That refrigerator finally gives up and you have to get a new
Mhm.
one.
Yeah, and as far as the housing rebounding, I mean, this is an extreme anecdote, but we went under contract December 1st on our a house we just bought.
Right.
So when we when we f- went to put an offer on, this house was on the market for 1 day, and there are already two other offers on it, but they were contingent or on selling their house or something
Yeah.
else. And we
Yeah.
said, all right, we'll put our offer, no contingencies.
Right.
And so we won it. But the fact that there were already three offers on the house that quickly, December 1st, I mean, I get it. I live in Florida, so housing's just a lot hotter here than a lot of other places. But I have a lot of realtor friends here, and it has slowed down. And so seeing that type of activity was kind of a interesting signal to me.
Well, on that note, it says here that construction activity is being underpinned by the new single family housing segment, thanks to an acute shortage of previously owned homes on the market. About 5 million short. That's what we are, about 5 million short. A policy, never mind about that. Construction activity is one reason the Federal Reserve rate hikes have not brought the economy to its knees like the economic models from other business cycles had forecasted. So what you've got here is you've had general construction that was happening on things like tilt ups for distribution centers. You had construction for the things that the Biden administration policies had, the what was that thing called?
Infrastructure bill. Yeah.
Infrastructure bill and whatnot. So you had a lot of government building and you had a lot of tilt ups and things like that, but you didn't have residential housing. Oh, you had apartment buildings. They were building a lot of apartment buildings last year. So now all of a sudden, here comes the residential housing. So that is already showing up with the interest rates only coming down in the last like 45, 60 days. You're already seeing the residential guys out there pulling their permits and starting to build. So that could be a massive impact on the economy in 2024. it says here there's also money for new industrial building projects, with the only risk being a severe nationwide shortage of construction workers. And that is a big deal because these are not guys you can just pick up off the, down at home. You can't just go down to Home Depot and get good construction workers. There's skill sets involved there that can take years to really become any good at. So construction spending was up 0.4% and revised the previous month 1.2 instead of what was shown as 0.6. That's a pretty big revision. And shot up by 11.3 year over year. And private construction projects increased by 0.7% as well. So that's all looking really, really strong.
Yeah, I agree. Build, baby,
Okay.
build.
Build, baby, build. All right, let's talk about inflation for a minute. We've got the Truflation. I reported on that this morning. Truflation dropping from over 3.06, all the way down to 2.09 this morning in
Whoa.
21 days. In 21 days, a full percentage point drop, and almost all of it is in the stuff you buy at Costco. Food,
Wow.
alcohol, tobacco, non-food beverages, clothing, and personal care items. Almost all of that drop is in those categories.
And this is after they did their revision, right, in their
Well, their
formula.
revision, yeah, they had been sitting at around 2.2%, something like that. And after the revision, it went to 303,
3, yeah.
310. And I was like, what in the world? But now it has fallen, and it's very specifically in those categories. And you remember Costco and Walmart CEOs both said they saw deflation coming, and these numbers are now in deflationary territory on those categories. Well, these guys know. They know 9 months in advance what their prices are going to be. So this is not a shock to them, but apparently it's a shock to the rest of the world.
Yeah, and when do we have CPI? Is that this week or next week?
That would be next week. This
Next
week
week,
is
okay.
employment numbers. Yeah.
Okay, that's yeah, okay. Yeah, so next week will be interesting, right? Next week, what's next week? Do we have CPI, but don't we also have the first what is it, primary caucus? Oh no, that's the following. Never mind. I was gonna
Oh yeah.
say I was
The first of the
yeah,
political.
the Iowa. Yeah.
I have to decide how I'm going to play politics next year. I don't want this to be a political channel, but the politics obviously affects the economy.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to play that. So, all right, well, let's take a look at how the numbers are looking right now. We'll start as always with Tesla in the after hours. So after being down 6 cents in the regular time, it's up 25 whole cents in the
Ooh.
after hours. So at least it's in the green, right? I was actually going to just check for fun to see. I was just going to pick one of the Magnificent Seven here just for fun. Like let's take who is down. So Meta was down a ton. Let's see how Meta is doing in the pre-market. So they're only up 30. I mean, they're down another 39 cents. So
Mm.
Tesla, which should have been doing very well today based on their numbers beat, has so to take a minute and just talk for a second though about the press. You mentioned that a little while earlier, and
Yeah.
I forgot to pick up on that. So here's my statement. Everything amazing that has happened to Tesla in the last 3 weeks has gone unreported.
Yep.
None of the press have been reporting on Optimus, on the new video. None have been reporting on the Cybertruck and all the amazing reviews. None of them reported the day on the beat. Everybody today was just reporting on, BYD is now the number one in terms of BEV sales, and instead of talking about the beat. So it's one thing for the press to report all this negative stuff that's lies and FUD and misdirection, misinformation, but at the same time, to fail to report the good things are happening, it almost gets to the point of like you just have to stop really believing that they're honest.
I mean, didn't you stop a long time ago? I mean, How many times do you have to hear them say something that you know is unequivocally false,
False, yes.
and then think, I mean, to think that the next thing they say is right or correct or honest. I mean, if I lied to you once, you probably wouldn't have me on here, right? It just
That's
takes
right.
once.
Yeah,
So with the media, you see it all the time. There's literally not a day that can go by that you won't see them say some type of half truth or just complete obvious misstatement that doesn't take a lot of research to figure out what's actually happening. And you'll see it every single day, whether it's Reuters, CNBC, CNN, Fox, they all do it.
yeah, yeah. No, it's pretty. In fact, I'm a big fan of Fox News because I'm conservative, but I wrote them a letter over that robot story or the
Yeah, it's
robot
a robot.
the robot
That
killing
injured and bloodied and all
killing
that. Yeah.
bloody the employee. And they were 3 days late on the story. They had plenty of time to do the right research, and they continued to say it the wrong way. I sent them a note and I said, if you can't get this story right, what else are you getting wrong?
Yeah.
And that was quite shocking to me. All right, let's go back to those numbers again. Yeah, okay, let's see here. The bonds were the big deal today. So the bonds, the 10-year went during the regular hours was up, I think about, I forget now, I think it was 9 basis points. And it's basically flat in the after hours. So were you shocked by the bonds yields going up so much in a day when the trend had been down?
Yeah. You know what shocked me was the 10-year.
Yeah,
Whenever we went under contract on this house, the 10-year was almost at 5.
right.
The day we went under contract, we just saw the 10-year go down, down, down. Then when we hit 3.79
Seven,
on
yeah,
the
7.9.
10-year,
Yeah.
I went ahead and said, "Hey, let's lock our rate."
Good
And
job,
since
man.
then, it's gone up. I don't time things well, not like that. So it's been completely comical to me to sit here and watch this.
Oh, that is amazing. Yeah, so we're sitting at 3.94 at this point. So I didn't think it'd get back over 3.9. I do think that there could be kind of some knee jerking going on today. Some first day jitters over the Red Sea, over the Apple statement, et cetera. I don't know. Or is one leading the other? I'm not quite sure. I think we're going to see this. I think it'll feather out during the week. I'm not sure we'll have a great week this week until we see those employment numbers, but I think this was an anomaly. But then I've been wrong once or twice.
Yeah, it's just one day. And yeah, all these things like, okay, Iran sending a ship over there. Iran always has ships in the Red Sea. Like that's not new. It's very normal. They're constantly playing war games with the U.S. over there. Like that is not a real headline. Like people who just weren't in that world, who've never served, they just don't understand. Literally, there's war games happening over there. I was stationed in Djibouti, and I'm telling you, it's so common. I'm not saying it's nothing. Like tensions are
Right.
definitely escalated, but it's not like it's rare or it's a very common for Iranian vessels to be there. And then with the Apple thing, how many years have we had these negative, notes about Apple? They've
No
been
kidding.
wrong. We see them about Tesla. We think we're right and that they're wrong. When it comes to Apple, why would you think anything else? Apple's proven everybody wrong year after year after year. Even when they lost jobs, even when everybody says, well, they haven't come out with any new revolutionary products in how long, yet they still keep every year. So I don't know. To to
So,
to just be negative on it, I think it's a lot of nothing.
so are you going to buy the big headset when Apple comes out with the headset?
No, I'm not.
No, you're not buying it. Huh?
Nah, I think I mean, I'll play with one if
There you go.
if someone uses one, like I'll test it out, but it's not. I don't think that's the future. I don't think that is the future in the way that this was.
I see. Yeah, yeah.
They may sell a lot or a decent amount. They're not going to sell them like iPhones. They're not. It's not going to be. It's not going to be the next big thing for them. I
Not at
don't
that,
think so.
not at that price. Not at that
No.
price. I even blanched at that price, but
Yeah.
we're still deciding whether we're going to get one. Anyway, so oil shockingly was down today. Natural gas was down today. Brent was down today. It was like, okay, I thought we had a Red Sea problem. So if we have a Red Sea problem, why wouldn't those have been up?
Well, and that goes back to my point. People who trade oil, who are actually in the oil markets, I think understood that that Iranian vessel going there, that wasn't actually a big deal,
Right,
right? Like, if anything, is that could create more stability because
right,
nobody wants to accidentally do something that triggers something.
right.
So, yeah,
Okay, and then gold, pretty much in the same trading range it's been in. Dollar was up a little, but that's understandable when you got the bonds doing what they did today. And then Bitcoin, you can't really base it on anything because it's all about the ETF. I mean, so
it is. Yeah.
yeah, so if the ETF happens, then this will be justified. If it doesn't happen, then what?
Well, there's also the halving event that's going to happen in
Oh, the
April.
having of
So that creates more scarcity for Bitcoin.
right, right. Okay, yeah. So anyway, it's sitting at 45,000 right now, which I think is a recent high. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then and then the futures, here we go. The Dow, I think the easiest way to talk about the Dow, the S&P, and the Nasdaq right now is it's about as flat as it can be. 0.04% would be the number for all three. So not much action going either way right now with regard to those guys. And then I always do this fun thing. I always go back to Tesla just in case. Well, it's up just a little bit. No, I'm sorry. There you go. No, that's Meta. That's why I'm doing wrong. Okay, here we go. Yep, down, not down, but only up 17 cents now. Of course, the after hours doesn't commonly reflect very much unless there's something really crazy going on. Have you ever played the after hours?
I haven't. And to add to that, not only do the after hours not reflect very much, neither does a single day, I would say.
Yeah, not neither does a single day. Last thoughts for today. Anything on your mind with regard to Tesla going into the next few weeks that you think we should be paying attention to that I haven't mentioned yet?
Um, not much to pay attention to. I think it's going to be an interesting month from a politics side. I think it'll be more confirmation from inflation is dead side. And as far as Tesla, I think it's gonna be quiet, not much really going on until earnings. And like I said, I think margins will be a nothing burger. Going into it, I agree with you. I think it'll be what everyone's talking about. Once we get the numbers, it'll be a nothing burger. And coming out of it will be all about whatever Tesla guides and whatever Elon says in his
And
mood.
whatever Elon says.
Yeah.
And then only a week or so after that, we're going to have this all hands on deck meeting. That's
Yeah.
so we're going to theoretically we should get every question we possibly could think of answered. But not, huh? Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. That'll be an interesting one, right? I mean, we've never seen them do this.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
why now? And it's interesting that it's gonna be SpaceX as well.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. Well,
All
what
right.
do you think about it? Like, why do you think this all of a sudden is it good news, bad news, nothing?
So what I want to believe, here's what I want to believe. So I've said this and nobody agrees with me. I can't remember if I said it to you, whether you did or didn't, but so far nobody really has agreed. I feel like Elon Musk, middle of last year, said exactly what was on his mind. He was very worried. And I think he basically pulled back. He said he was going to be pedal to the metal last year. I think he was not. He said, we're not going to hire in Europe and we're just going to have to lay off again. We're not going to start additional lines in Austin when we might have to just shut those lines down or lower the prices even more. I think he pulled back. I think right now his statement, which was my thumbnail this morning about let's go now, let's what was it, LFG?
Yeah.
Yeah, LFG, which I'd never heard of before. It shows you how hip I am.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm really old. Okay. Anyway, so LFG. So to me, that was symbolic. That's why I made it the thumbnail. It's like this is Elon saying, okay, we're done with that. Okay, let's go. And if he gets that mindset in and he gets his all hands on meeting, it's going to be a rah-rah meeting. It's going to be, okay, let's go for this big number. Okay, let's make sure that we get this done in time. Okay, here's where we are on batteries, 4680s. We need to get to here, by this date or whatever. I don't know. Something that'll be kind of rah-rah and go. Anyway, that's my dream.
So you think it's going to be a potential pep rally for, all right, I think everything's clear. It's time to go full steam ahead. SpaceX, we need to get, we need to get Starship up and get that done. We got to accelerate the lines there, get X amount up going every week, month, whatever. Tesla, we got to get FSD done. We need to get Optimus to this. We need to hit our 50% number. You think it's going to be like that? Like, I'm here telling you, we're good. Go all out, full throttle, whatever you need. Nothing's the limit. Let's go. You think
That
it's going
would
to be like that?
that's my dream.
All right. I
I
like
can't
it.
I can't tell you how many times I ran those kind of meetings in my manufacturing business or in my wholesale business or in all of my businesses, but especially in the manufacturing business, because we had one year when we grew 400% in a single year. And, it was like, we were just every month we were out there. Okay, hey, look what we did last month. Okay, now let's do it again. I mean, that kind of stuff works. And he's kind of that way anyway, trying to hit those big numbers.
Could you imagine if he on stage sat there and said, Tesla team, I expect the next gen vehicle manufacturing line to be completed by December 1st. I expect FSD to be done by June. I expect Starship to, and he gave deadlines like that publicly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be right about your 700 number.
There you go. See, this is the kind of thing I'm looking for. I'm a marketing guy. This is the stuff I love.
Tesla would go crazy. Even if it was for a day, it would go crazy.
Well, okay. We can put both of our hopiums together and see if it makes any difference. Hey, Nicholas, it's great to have you on as the co-host on Tuesday nights, and we'll see what happens tomorrow as the markets hopefully shake off this weird day that started the new year.
Absolutely.
All right. And to all of you out there, it has been great talking to you.